going on, guys? This is the 5 Year Pass podcast, bringing you another episode in the international break. My name is Suri, this is Sham, and we're just going to chat shit, I guess, for about 20 minutes. But we have a few things we wanted to talk about specifically. I guess we'll just start off, man. United are not doing badly if you woke up from the start of the season to now and saw they were 2 points behind the leaders. They've beaten Leeds, Newcastle, drawn to a tough Everton game, drawn to Villa as well. They lost to Villa. And they have Cristiano Ronaldo. And you'd be thinking they're doing okay, 2 points behind, not conceding a whole lot. But if you never watch the games, you wouldn't know that they're probably playing the worst football, I think, in the top six to top eight. There's no progressiveness. There's no, besides the Newcastle and Leeds games, which were very, very good games, to be fair, there's no incisiveness. There's no cutting edge. There's no potency. They're relying on big moments, as you've said more than me, actually, relying on big moments from the big players, as they've done since maybe Bruno's come in. I wanted to deep dive into, as much as we can, into what we think's going on at United. And I guess you could start, man. Let's just start from the back. We'll kind of start from the back, go to the front, see what's going on, and where you think they can improve.
Yeah, it's interesting. I actually think De Gea has actually played pretty well. He's not quite at that for Player of the Year awards in 5 years
No.
type level, but he's playing as well as any keeper going around. Big save to earn United the win at West Ham against Wolves as well. He's sort of shed off that negativity. I remember watching him in the Europa League final, and you could just tell even before the shootout that he wasn't going to help. He wasn't going to be able to win United the game. So he's cleared his head. He's actually playing pretty well. The defense is interesting because I think individually, United have a very strong back four. Varane, Maguire, Shaw, all playing quite well. Shaw's had a bit of a niggle, just a bit of a thigh injury, but apart from that, they play quite well. Bissaka seems to look a bit more like the weak link in that back four. I think that's
interesting. I found that an interesting point.
It's interesting because he's very solid defensively to the point where I think he's actually been taken for granted a bit. I think he's very suited to defending the modern sort of left winger that likes cutting in. He's very good one-on-one. He stands up well, and when he goes in for the tackle, he goes hard and wins clean tackles. But just that ability to move the ball forward is something that he's lacking. Trent Alexander-Arnold's probably the extreme example, but if he could evolve his play in that way, not necessarily to that level, it will add a lot to United's attack. But I think that the back four as a whole seems to be okay. They're not keeping clean sheets, and I think the big problem is that space right in front of them. United haven't really sorted out who's playing in the 4-2-3-1, and I think that space. I've said it a few times on this channel. Just if you take the centre backs and the centre midfielders in a square, that space is a very big vulnerability for United, and they've gotten by in the past with McTominay and Fred. And McTominay's missed a bit of football this season. Fred seems to just be getting worse. He's just making big mistakes, and you'd rather have someone in those spaces that isn't a world-class player but never makes a mistake. And that space in England, even Guardiola said when he first came to England, that space with the second ball. So what I mean when I say second ball is say Trent for Liverpool has the ball out wide, hits a cross in, centre back clears it. Where that lands, that's the second ball, and that's where the ball is generally won, and that's where the game is played. That space where the 10 in the attacking team sits and the 6 defends, that's very important. And United don't have that foundation there. I think that's a big problem for United.
Yeah, and I want to talk about defense real quick as well. I think it's been said Shaw's done really well in the last 12 to 18 months. There's still errors in his game, but I don't think it's systemic as it was before. I think it's just a little bit of lack of focus, a little bit of lack of positioning. But I think as a whole, I think he scored 1 goal, 2 assists this season, if I'm not wrong. Wan-Bissaka, I think he has played enough games as a young player to not be called a young player, not to be used as the young player excuse anymore. In the same way, no one ever says Trent's a young player because he's played, I think he's played about 200 games in his career so far, and he's 22. Yeah. So Wan-Bissaka as well, I think his is more, there is a bit more of a concentration problem there. And I think it's because he looks very inside himself. I think he takes the criticisms of not being an attacking winger a bit harshly, because I think some players are just the way they are, and I think he's the next fullback for years to come. So I think as far as he goes, there's a little bit of
it's strange just to jump in because I wanted to ask you just quickly. He was actually a winger who became a fullback. So
Yeah,
you'd almost
yeah.
assume that his problem would be defensive, but it seems to be the other way around. His problem is going
Well, I'll
forward.
tell you what that is, man. I'll tell you what that is. They would have seen, and I'll be very, very, very honest. They would have seen a fast, athletic black player. They would have thought, "Oh, stick him out on the wing as a kid." Like that probably what would have happened. And like a lot of people, you kind of think, "Oh, I'm not the best winger, so I got to find my position." And I think Jamie Carragher said a few years ago, Gary Neville is a failed fullback, a failed winger, a failed centre half, and Gary Neville is a failed centre half. So every right back is a failed something. I think Luke Shaw would have been a winger or a centre half back in the day. So that's the defense. But I think there's not a lot going on in the defense. I think the lapses in that number 6 area, which we'll talk about now for a second,
Mm.
is is big. And there's 2 points I want to bring up. Is I think if they combine together, Fred and McTominay, they have the best of a very good centre midfielder. Um, Fred not as much, but I think McTominay is an industriousness. But I think I'm just wondering, United see players week in, week out. They go up against Douglas Luiz, Doucouré,
Alan,
Fabinho, Alan, and I'm just wondering what's stopping them from getting these players, not for the 60 million price tag, but these players show up every single time against United, against Liverpool, against City. I wonder why they don't go buy these, this position 8 to position 15 centre midfielders. It baffles me. So let's talk about that number 6 position because I think this is where the biggest problem lies. So what
yeah.
do you think is actually going on?
I think that if you took McTominay and Fred and put them in one jersey and they took the best of the
Yeah,
attributes of each other, that's
absolutely.
somewhere pretty close to what you'd want in the player in that position.
Mm,
The problem is they're taking two jerseys. So
yeah.
what that means is United don't have the player next to that defensive player who provides a balance in terms of attacking ability and in terms of being able to drive the team forward, so the play
Hmm.
can look disjointed going forward. So getting that balance right, it's almost as if Donny van der Beek, I think, would probably be the best player in that position, just to be able to link play and move around and get positions. But he needs solidity alongside him, and there's not a player who can really offer that. Managed 5 years ago, yes, but not at the moment. The issue is that I think United have lost a bit with McTominay and Fred. They always lost a bit going forward. They had the ability to, and I'm talking in seasons prior, to negate and play a role and do their thing. And every team needs those players. It's not to say that they're lesser players because of that. I mean, all the successful United players had Gary Neville's, Darren Fletcher's, those sort of players. And McTominay and Fred are those types of players.
Hmm.
It's just that they're being asked to do a bit more than what they should do. And
Hmm.
what used to happen, I remember when Bruno came, Bruno used to drop so deep to get the ball because he knew that he couldn't get the drive out of those guys. And
Yeah.
Fred at certain times was being asked to be that player, which he's not. So when Bruno started moving further forward, he's
Hmm.
put more responsibility on them. If they can't get that out of McTominay and Fred, they then need to get it from the wider play. So Liverpool, for example, they play sort of three in the midfield, but a lot of their drive going forward comes from the fullbacks. So again, the problems with Shaw and Bissaka. Shaw's as good as anyone at left back in the league, but Wan Bissaka again, if he could provide a bit more going forward, then it compensates for the lack of drive from the central positions. So
Hmm.
getting that balance of two midfielders who can play that role. You look at Jorginho, his ability to hold possession, hold position, versus Kante, who's this massive ball of energy that just runs and wins
Hmm.
the ball and intercepts and hits 5 yard passes. That works. So if you look at Pirlo and Gattuso, Pirlo was similar to Jorginho, because Gattuso was very
Hmm.
similar to Kante. I'm not saying that it needs to be a Jorginho and a Kante type player, but the attributes of the two of them combined, spread across two players, is what United need. And they don't really have that. They don't. McTominay and Fred don't have the ability to hold possession or to hit passes forward. They have more of the defensive attributes. But I feel that teams are really going at them hard as the weaknesses. The weaknesses in United at the moment are those two, and probably Bissaka is the third one. And you look at the goal that they conceded against Everton, for example. Fred got muscled off the ball. Bissaka came to compensate, was caught out of position, couldn't quite get back in, and then it opens up the other side of the field for the goals. So it's that balance.
And
Those players, and we just, it's not necessarily that we need replacements, but they need to be able to do. In
no, no,
theory,
no.
they can do the
You're
things that
you're
need to
absolutely
be done, but they're just not doing them.
you're absolutely right. And I think the best example for that was actually Wolves. It was actually a better example than the Everton game because if you saw Adama try, just they hit Wan-Bissaka every 2 minutes in the first half. And I thought, I
Mm.
mean, I'm surprised United got away with less than was it 2-1 that win, 2
I
nil
remember
maybe.
seeing Varane backpedaling like crazy, particularly at
Yeah,
the beginning
it
of that
was,
game. He
it,
was,
and
yeah.
and they hit that position hard, and they would cut in. They would cut in because they knew hitting that position hard would fuck with McTominay, would fuck with Fred, and they nearly got more than, I just can't remember the score right now, but they nearly got goals out of it. Um, definitely. I don't think Van der Beek is that made for that position, but I will say this: I think it's come to a point that Fred probably has to kind of take a back seat by January, by the summer. I think that McTominay, and I maintain this, I think McTominay will do very well if he does have a Kante type. Who would it be? Yeah, it'd be more of a Kante type. It'd be more of a Matic type, a young Matic type in that role. I think he does very well. I just think Fred is the one to go. But if they were to get two, see if they were to go and get one number 6, they could go play in that 4-3-3, and Bruno will play in that number 10. Pogba would be in that Perlo role, and then they would have a Gattuso type. It's up to United to go and get that position, man. Because as I said, coming back to my first point, you have Decore, Douglas Luiz, who's that third player, Alan from Everton as well. Why are these players at United, or what are these types for cut prices as well, 10-15 million? I wonder.
Yeah, I just want to add to that. I think Van der Beek has some of the attributes that United need for a player in that position, but he does have deficiencies in his game as well. But yeah. I was referring more to his ability to make progressive passes, to move into space. That ability that he has is needed. I'm not sure if he's the answer, but I do think the answer is McTominay +1. I think McTominay. I could see, for example, if he played alongside someone like Paul Scholes, like that, he would be absolutely brilliant for him. He would be able to do the work, get the ball to Scholes, who could then make those short and long passes that United would need. I'm not saying Paul Scholes comes out of retirement, but alongside the right player, McTominay will become a lot better player.
Yeah,
and I don't see that in Fred. I don't think Fred would suddenly become better with the right player next to him.
So go up to the front four. United have about 15 fucking players in that position who can play in every position, and you have about 4 who can play in that front 3, and then you have 4 who can play up top. That's part of the problem, perhaps. There's not enough continuance that can happen. There's too much rotating. It's even worse when you have that many players and Marcus Rashford's not around. Means that you can't even slot him in, so the drop off is big when you don't play Rashford. And another big one would be Martial, just not in the form that he's ever going to be in, I think 2 years ago. But I think the biggest talking point is, has Ronaldo slowed the team down, hindered the team as far as, I'm not talking from a professionalism point of view, but from a tactical point of view. Has it changed for United?
It's interesting, yeah. United probably have about 10 first-team players that can play in those 4 positions. And then when you add the reserves, guys like Alanga, guys like Diallo, you're probably looking at like 15 players. If you look at those 10 players, you got Pogba, Lingard, Mata, Martial, and Cavani, who probably won't be around next season. So you've got 5 immediately who are like, I mean, Pogba, I think he'll leave. And like, there's 5 guys there that are sort of just staying on a year too long. And then you've got Sancho and Ronaldo who are new. So they've just arrived. So you've really got Bruno, Rashford, and Greenwood, who are sort of the 3 guys in that team. And the balance is, Ollie's not got the balances right. The team does need to be built around Bruno. I do think that this is still, I think it's Bruno's team still, but I think it will become Ronaldo's team very shortly. In that sense, if not already. It's just that Bruno has had such an important effect on this team. I'd hate to see Ronaldo coming along blunt his influence. There's a lot of talk about that penalty that Bruno missed and sort of whether there was pressure or not from Ronaldo. But I'm sure, I'm sure they had a chat. I'm sure they had. I mean, he missed penalties, and I'm sure they had a chat before the game. I'm sure they had some agreement that Bruno would. I doubt very much that Bruno takes the next penalty, but I'm sure they had a chat before the game and all that. And good footballers find a way to play with each other. Bruno and Ronaldo is an incredible combination if you can get it to work, because Ronaldo will sort of play center and drift a bit left. He'll create space for Bruno to sort of play in the 10 and pop up as a second striker. And they got the Portuguese connection as well. Bruno probably worships the ground Cristiano walks on, probably grew up wanting to be Cristiano. So that could work. But I think alongside them, they need to get the balance of, they've got 2 types of players in wide areas. They've got creative players who are a bit like, say, your Matas, your Pogbas, your Sanchos, a bit more creative. And then you've got Lingard's a
bit
bit like
direct.
his own. He's a more interceptor, breaks up play, gets others involved, and then you've got guys like Martial, Rashford, Greenwood, who are really forwards playing as wide attackers as opposed to creative players.
Yeah.
And Ollie seems to have got the balance quite wrong at times. He had Martial and Greenwood sort of in the wide areas against Everton, for example. I think he generally needs a creative player
Mm.
alongside a forward in those areas. And Greenwood seems to have, he started the season well. He's dropped off a little bit, Mason Greenwood.
Mm.
I think he's got a bit of an eye for a goal now. He gets the ball and you kind of know that he's sort of turning into an Iron Robin a bit. Like, I got the ball, now I'm going
Mm.
to score type of thing. I think he needs to
Yeah.
get a bit more involved in play as opposed to
Yeah.
trying to produce the end result. And I'm saying he's greedy. I'm saying he's just looking at goals and not really looking wider. And I think the other thing as well is the thing about Ronaldo is the reason he does well in big moments is he does conserve his energy quite a bit. Zidane used to do it for France. He's not the only footballer that's ever done it in the history of the world. He pays less attention to his attacking duties, and then he has more energy for his attacking. Sorry, he pays less
Defensive.
attention to his defensive, so he has more energy for his attacking activities. People forget that Ronaldo played at United in a very successful era with Tevez and Rooney, who were workhorses. Those guys would work their socks off and provide Ronaldo a platform, even though they were the strikers and Ronaldo was the wide player. They would provide Ronaldo a platform to produce those moments. And you look at the United team now, Pogba's not that type of player. Bruno's not that type of player. Greenwood's not that type of player. Sancho's not that type of player. So the players around him are doing the work. Even at Real Madrid, he had players like Angel Di Maria around him, Benzema, who are quite selfless players who will do the work. And even someone like Gareth Bale, who came in and was quite successful in terms of his output, was not really appreciated by his teammates, probably because he wasn't necessarily doing the work. So Ronaldo needs guys around him to do a bit more of the dog work so he can be, if you bring in Ronaldo, you're bringing in a player to be a star. So they need to provide Ronaldo that platform to be a star.
Yeah, and I think I couldn't say better myself, man. I was actually going to talk about Mason Greenwood having a bit more of an eye for goal, which I like, and I think Ollie's rubbed off on him a lot. Just being someone, there's a very like kind of amateurish footage from his early days in Mulder when he was a coach, and Ollie's just like, would someone fucking shoot the ball? He's in training, and he's just going, just fucking shoot. And I think Ollie would have probably said that to Greenwood. I like the fact that he's going for it, and the good thing is there's not much more to improve from a pure finishing point of view with Greenwood. It's now, how do I get into positions? How do I roll off the man? If you saw Jota's goal, no, Jota had a shot in the weekend, and it was this beautiful turn to his left, and that's what Greenwood needs to maybe develop a bit more physique, which is nothing short, which is not a shortage of talent at the minute. I think it's just the time frame. As far as Rashford goes, I won't say too much about him. I think he comes back the next game. It should be. I have every confidence that he'd be fit. He's a professional. Martial for me needs to go. I think he spent his time. He's been there 6 years, 14, so he's been there 7 years now. I think it's about time.
I don't think he's going to get better at United, at least.
Yeah, there's not much he can do that's better. He comes out worldies, to be fair. Like, some of his goals are outrageous, but like Jesse Lingard, if you compare him to someone like Jesse Lingard, look at Jesse's output and big moments. I'd rather keep Jesse, a local guy, big moments, has the passion for the club. He'd probably leave next year as well. I think as far as the attack goes, why I asked you that question, and I'd like to just finish off on this topic, is that I personally feel that the players around Ronaldo, I'm talking about the young ones, and I maybe put half of Bruno in that category. I just don't think there's enough. Holy shit, we have the best player in the world with us right now. We need to do everything we can. It's like when a hot girl walks into a bar, the guys clamor over it. The guys are being their, in their best form. I just don't think the players maybe don't realize how grateful they are, or will realize this in a few years. And you only need to turn to Rooney. I'm sure, any of them could have a chat with Wayne Rooney and ask him what's the best period in his life, and you could say Wayne Rooney did perform at his highest with Ronaldo around. So there is a lot of tactics that needs to be kind of worked out, a bit more continuity, a bit more fluidity. But I also think that the players are just not working hard enough to want to play and make Ronaldo be the forefront to score many goals.
And I think that there's not a lot of synergy, and there are players there who have been accused in the past of trying to be stars.
Yeah.
There is more of an element of selflessness that's needed, and more synergy, like you said. It's still hard to pick what a United goal is. You could pick a Liverpool goal, you could pick a Chelsea goal, you could pick a City goal. You can't really say that about United. Even some of Ronaldo's goals, like tap-ins from crosses, goalkeepers spilling shots, that that sort of thing. It's not he's not scoring goals in a certain way. It's just
Mm.
more being ruthless to take advantage of his football IQ.